Welcome, guys, to another episode of S&M Radio. As you heard from the Creepshow Creep himself, this is another episode dedicated to Creepshow. This time we're talking about Creepshow 2. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Mark.
There's a couple of things with this episode that are firsts for us. Number one is that this is the first time that we are covering a sequel right after talking about the original movie.
Woohoo!
And then the other real cool thing about this episode is going to be the 50th episode of S&M Radio.
What a huge milestone. That's awesome. I hope you all enjoyed the first one. We obviously did. We really like the Creepshow movies. Actually, this one probably more than the first one.
Of the two, this one is definitely my favorite as well. Creepshow 2 has a few connections back to the first one, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. One of the other controversies with Creepshow 2 is, even though there is another Creepshow movie after Creepshow 2 came out, a lot of people, pretty much everybody, I think, really considers what was called Creepshow 3 that came out, I think it was like 20 years, 30 years later. It wasn't a couple years later, I know that. But pretty much everybody considers Creepshow 3 not even really to be a sequel at all. And even though George Romero and Stephen King didn't direct this movie and weren't involved in this movie as far as acting goes, Creepshow 2 was pretty much... I think the script was written by Romero. It was based off of Stephen King stories again. And then actually the guy that directed Creepshow 2, Michael Gornick, he was the cinematographer on the original Creepshow. And a lot of people, including myself, like to think of the Tales from the Dark Side movie that came out just a couple years after this one did, to actually be the real Creepshow 3s.
Yeah, I was one of the ones who suffered through Creepshow 3.
Creepshow 2 is an anthology movie. This time around, it is 3 short stories: Old Chief Woodenhead, The Raft, and then the last story is The Hitchhiker.
3 great ones, yeah. Old Chief Woodenhead, I actually really enjoy that one. It's not my favorite of the 3, but I thought that one was, it's about basically there's this old town that's kind of going under, and all the stores are going under, and there's this old couple that run this little general store. It's Native Americans who live in this area, and one of them supposedly, I guess he purchased items from the store, and he wasn't able to pay on his account, so he ends up giving the store owner, the old man, some treasures that belong to his tribe. So they're these Native American artifacts that are, have some, probably quite a bit of monetary value. And so the old man doesn't want to take them because of that, and so, but he holds on to them because the Native American is basically like, it would be dishonorable if you don't take these. And so he lets them in. And then the Native American's grandson, I think, or nephew, and he wants to go to Hollywood and, get girls and money and all of that stuff and success, and basically steal them from this old couple. And so he can, have all this money to go out and pursue his thing. And he's got a couple of sidekicks with him that are pretty pathetic.
Old Chief Woodenhead comes to life.
He does. And boy, is that cool.
Yeah, that first scene there when they're in there and attacking the old couple in the store, and he breaks through the wall, basically grabs the one dude by his long, luxurious hair that's going to make it, because that's one of the things too when you're talking about, because he's going to go to Hollywood and be a movie star.
Yep.
He kept like flaunting his hair around, this big, long, dark, beautiful Native American hair, and old Chief Woodenhead grabs him by the hair and scalps him. So the second story in the movie is The Raft, and this one has always been my favorite short story from the Creepshow series. I would almost even say my favorite short story from any anthology type movie out there at all. This is always one of the ones that anytime I think of it or think of Creepshow, for whatever reason, this is always the one that pops into my mind. And this is one of the things, even when I think back to when, like we were talking about when we were, 12, 13 years old watching Creepshow on VHS and stuff, this is always the one that I always remember.
It is the best one, I think, out of all of them. It's actually an adaptation of a Stephen King short story in his book Skeleton Crew, but it is the best one by far. It's a very simple story. It's a couple of or four college kids or high school kids. They drive out to this little remote, man-made little pond lake thing. And in the middle, there's a raft sitting there, and the water's freezing. And they all go out for whatever reason. They park the car on the beach, and they all swim out to the raft. And as they're swimming, they notice that there's this like what looks like a oil slick of just this goo that's floating in the water. And they're seeing it kind of like seems like there's some ducks in the water that are being absorbed by it or attacked by it, or something strange is happening. Anyhow, they get on the raft, and then they realize this thing is kind of like following them and circling the raft. And before you know it, this thing is basically the first victim of this blob, if you want to call it that. She like looks down at the blob kind of floating around by the side of the raft, and as she's looking, it kind of puts her in a trance. And actually, in the book, in the short story, there's like, if you look at this thing, it kind of like gives you these strange colors and sort of hypnotizes you and kind of puts you in a trance, and then it's able to get you. And it just kind of pulls up and grabs her and pulls her into the water. And it's basically like a blob that eats you. And oh gosh, as soon as that happened and you know what this thing's about, I agree with you. That is an excellent story. Probably my favorite out of all of them too.
Oh yeah, for sure. The whole thing is just kind of creepy and eerie. And one of the things that always creeped me out about this story, not so much now, but especially when I was younger, was that my grandparents used to live out in the country, in central Illinois, and my grandfather had built this man-made pond. It wasn't as big as the pond in this movie. He didn't have a raft that was like floating out in the middle of the water, but he had, they had this landing on there that off the shoreline that really resembled this. And so it always kind of reminded me of that. 2 guys and 1 girl left. And of course the guys are like these weird, like jockey kind of, which is kind of weird to me because if you remember, they went out there and they had a bunch of pot with them. So they were going to smoke up after they got out there, and which is fine. But usually, the jockey guys are not getting all high and stuff.
Right.
But anyway, the one guy, he decides that he could swim back to shore and get help. Before he can get too far, the blob grabs a hold of him through the raft and kind of sucks him down through the raft. Then you have the 2 people left, and they're afraid to fall asleep, and they're afraid to, you can't be over the cracks in the raft or whatever you want to call them. The splits between the boards. So they decide they're going to keep watch, and the blob thing is outside of the rafter. And of course the girl goes to sleep first. One of the things that always kind of even to this day, last time we watched this not too long ago, kind of creeped me out. It gave me a weird Bill Cosby sort of feeling to it, is while she's sleeping, he decides that he's going to lift her shirt up and play with her
Yeah.
He's sitting
Right.
there fondling her breasts and
Right.
stuff. And then all of a sudden, because he had taken his eyes off of the blob comes up underneath the raft and grabs a hold of her face and, attacks her. And it's just it was always one of those things that just, even, like I said, just the whole thing kind of creeped me out when I was a kid. And then, of course, the very end of this, the sole surviving guy decides that he can swim to the shore, and he dives off of the raft and hauls ass to the shore. Like the dumb jock that he is, gets to the shore and rubs it into the blob's face. Like, I beat you, I beat you. And then the blob jumps up onto the shore like in this giant waves and sucks him back into the water.
Yeah, that's such a great ending. Actually, it's funny because that ending where the big wave of the blob comes up over him, they played that quick shot like several times on like HBO or something, like on the commercials. And I didn't know what the movie was, but then when I saw the actual movie, I was like, oh yeah, I seen that clip before. It was kind of neat to, oh, okay, that's what that was from. But yeah, that's what a great way to end it. And the whole thing too, where he kind of loses, he's there to guard and stand and make sure that, his feet are on the boards and the blob can't come in up between the cracks, and then he lays her down, and then, he's not thinking, and then of course it gets her. So yeah, what an excellent story.
One of the other things too that I wanted to mention about the raft, we kind of skimmed over it there. The second guy that gets killed in that short story, the blob comes up through the boards, grabs a hold of his feet, and essentially busts through the boards, pulls his one leg down through that hole that was created in the boards by his one leg. The blob pulls the rest of his body down through that hole. When you're watching it, it's this really gruesome scene, even for this movie. This movie came out in 1987. And the guy's leg, essentially splits up, and it's like he's like doing this like full body split thing, and pulls him down through. And it's, for whatever reason, that kill was always one of those scenes. Even to this day, every time I see it, I'm like, ouch! It's just, I don't know why it gets to me, but it just makes me hurt everywhere. Like I just get this weird like pain, like like on my inner thighs and in my it's just gross.
Yeah, it hurts, and that's not what's supposed to happen to your leg.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
that's like when you see these movies and people like get their arms cut off or their legs cut off or even their throats cut. Like that never bugs me because I'm like, I have no idea what that feels like. I don't know what getting pulled through a raft feels like either. So, and then after the raft, we move on to the final anthology story of the series, and that is the Hitchhiker.
Yes, the Hitchhiker, and that one we have a woman who is having an affair, and she heads off to go back home, and well, actually, she's not having an affair. Well, she is, but she's having. I think he's a male prostitute, if I remember correctly, because I think she pays him. So she leaves her male prostitute, gets in her car, and is driving, and accidentally hits a hitchhiker. Poor guy in a raincoat. And then she looks, and it looks like he's dead. And instead of stopping and getting the police and all of that stuff, she drives off. And at that point, being that this is Creepshow 2, I'm sure you can assume what happens next.
This story always kind of reminded me Twilight Zone story.
Yeah.
That I think might even have the same storyline or the same title. I think it might even been called The Hitchhiker.
Yes, it isn't very, it has it's different. It's the same, but different. It's basically, there's a hitchhiker and this woman keeps running into him over and over again. She doesn't hit him, but she keeps seeing him everywhere she stops.
Exactly. But but this one is, she runs this guy over, takes off, and then she ultimately keeps encountering the guy again. He's always keeps, thanks for the ride, lady.
Yes.
And he keeps popping up, and she keeps. This is the thing with it too that's kind of eerie. She keeps hitting him. She keeps running him over.
She does.
And she keeps, and every time she hits him, it seems to be more brutal than the last time. There's even at one point where he has like a sign saying "You killed me."
Yes.
But he keeps saying the whole "Thanks for the ride, lady," and it keeps, as his body is degrading through all of these various hit and run incidents.
Right.
You know, it gets more and more gargled and more unrecognizable, but he keeps saying it, and then I think at the very last part of it, you know, it's just
Yeah, he's basically just a tongue at that point.
yeah. But it's a pretty good story.
It is probably the goriest of all the episodes too. I mean, there's a lot of gore effects in this. The hitchhiker really takes a beating from this lady's car. So I actually remember my mom hated this episode. She was like, "This is terrible. You shouldn't be watching this. This is just horrible. She keeps hitting this poor guy." It was a good way to end it, I think. I think just having the three, I know they were hoping to do more, but to me, I think it's three pretty tight, solid stories, you know, for this episode, for Creepshow 2. I think I like Creepshow 2 just a pinch more than the first one. So yeah, Creepshow 2, man. So what are you going to give it? I'm totally giving it a thumbs up.
Oh yeah, thumbs up for sure. All right, so Creepshow 2, we both give it a thumbs up.
Absolutely.
I guess we're learning from previous experiences. We won't go ahead and announce what the next episode will be on the show, because I think it's happened 3 times now. We're like, next episode we're doing this, and then it ends up not happening. So we won't do that this time. So we'll just say we'll be back in a couple of weeks with something new for you.
Yes, we will, and it'll be good.